Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Michelle Zepeda, and I'm the Program Coordinator at Waterford Place Cancer Resource Center. For anyone impacted by a cancer diagnosis, Waterford Place provides programs and services free of charge that support whole person care. Today, we are presenting the ABCs of estate planning, and this is presented by David Weiner. So David has been helping people and companies find solutions to their financial needs since 1983, following in his dad's footsteps, who began the company in 1959. Weiner Insurance prides themselves on offering their clients service, choice, and experience. They bring financial solutions to their clients, whether they have a need for estate planning, employee benefits, Medicare, long-term care, or individual life insurance planning. David and his network of professionals are committed to client service and happy to help you find someone that you can confide and trust in for your estate planning needs. He is happy to present a general overview of estate planning and encourages you to meet with a professional that will ensure your goals and objectives can be met. Thank you so much, David, for joining us today.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it. And I thank you for all the work that you do, throughout the year. And I know the last 5-6 months has really been difficult for everybody. And I just really hope to leave everybody with some tools and resources so that they'll get their questions answered. And I'm always available to help answer your questions. So please, feel free. You've got my phone number here. Give me a call anytime, and I'd be happy to help you. First, I'd like to begin with really, what is an estate plan? A lot of times when we hear the word estate plan, we think we need to be a Rockefeller, or a Bill Gates, and that's really not true at all. An estate plan is really making sure what you have goes to whom you want, when you want it to go to them, exactly the way you want it to go to them, and all at the least cost and hassle possible to you and the people you love and care about. That's really what an estate plan is in the most simplest of ways. We want to make sure that whether it's your children, whether it's your brothers or your sisters, your spouse, that whatever you have is going to be passed on to them very easily. I'm going to probably be asking you a lot more questions today and not necessarily, giving you all the answers, because some of those answers are only going to be able to really come from your heart. And there's a lot of hard questions and hard decisions that have to be made. But the first one is, have you thought about who should inherit your assets? Whether it is money, whether it's your mother's china, your grandmother's wedding ring, any of these things, you really have to decide on how you want those to be distributed upon your death. Which assets should they inherit it, and when and how should they inherit those assets? These are some of the questions that I really want you to think about over the next week or two, and really try to focus on whether it's family heirlooms, whether it's money, but just to make sure that they get to the right people at the right time. Okay. What I'm going to really be doing is, this is just a brief outline. I'm going to, really try to talk about wills, living wills, what is probate, trusts, why you need a healthcare power of attorney, an ethical will, how to name your beneficiaries, and what does a POD or paid on death mean when you're talking about your bank, your checking accounts. Okay, so let's first start with, what is a will and what is a living will? Because a lot of times you hear these names used interchangeably, and a lot of times people really get them confused. So let's start with a will, and that's just a notarized legal document that expresses a person's wishes as to how their properties be distributed after their death, as to which person is to manage the property until its final distribution. A will does not have to be, a 50-page legal document, written by an attorney. A will can be just a simple statement of your wishes. I wish to leave XYZ to my daughter, and DEF to my son, with your signature and a notary that it's been witnessed and notarized. And that really can be, as simple as it needs to be. Okay. There's certain assets that are not going to be subject to your will. And when we talk about these assets, we're talking about assets that have a beneficiary designation. So, if you have a 401k, on your 401k, you already have instructions as to where that should be, who that should be distributed to. If you have an IRA, that also has a beneficiary designation. So those types of assets, because they have a beneficiary designation, do not need to be outlined in your will. There are other assets, if you have a stock brokerage account or a checking or savings account, those have designations that are called POD, or paid on death. And a lot of times when you've opened up your checking account or your IRA, you've already designated your beneficiary. And so those are not going to have to be outlined in your will. What is important is that, I know I opened up my checking account years ago, and it's important that you every so often just double check with the bank to see if you have one. Check with your IRA company, make sure you have one, and just make sure it's up to date and accurate. As your family has grown and as you have children, things do change. Okay. An important part of a will is called an executor. And an executor is really going to be a person that you trust to fulfill your wishes. They're going to be the ones responsible for reading the will and making sure that, if Grandma's China is supposed to go to Susie, they're going to make sure that Grandma's China goes to Susie. That's their job as an executor. Picking an executor is never easy. As I told you, I'm going to have more questions than answers for you probably. But, oftentimes, it could be a sibling, it could be your parents. If you have children that are of an adult age, they could be named. But obviously somebody that's, responsible, that has some wherewithal on how to, deal with this, and has some sensitivity in dealing with family relationships. And so you're going to want to make sure that when you draw up your will, that you name an executor in the will. Okay. Let's talk about a living will now. And a living will allows you to explain your wishes regarding the medical procedures you want or don't want in the event that your health becomes critical. It comes into play when you can't really voice your own wishes. Do you want to be resuscitated, placed on a ventilator, palliative care, or do you want to donate your organs to science? So a living will is going to state what your wishes are, but it doesn't direct an individual to do it. In order to direct an individual to do it, you're going to have what we call as an advanced medical directive, and that will name someone to act on your behalf. Okay. Once again, it's very difficult to really choose who do you trust, who do you feel comfortable with, and sometimes who is willing to take the responsibility of serving as your advanced medical directive to make sure that your wishes are carried out. These are very emotional times, they're difficult times, and you want to make sure that you name somebody with some maturity and with some intent to really honor what your wishes are. Sometimes when we see a living will, we will see perhaps 3 people named. It could be a family relative, it could be your physician, it could be a clergy member, a friend. So it doesn't have to be just one person that has to have this responsibility in your living will. And please, by all means, save up your questions and send them to the chat room, and we'll get things answered if I'm not making myself clear. Probably some of you have probably heard of probate, and what happens is if you pass away without a will, your estate will have to go through probate. And in Illinois, we have a very simple process that if your estate is less than $100,000 with no unpaid debt or taxes, then you can go through probate process, a simple probate process, as long as your heirs and beneficiaries agree to the process. Okay. If your estate is more than 100,000 and not everybody is real harmonious, then it's going to be a little bit longer process. And typically at that point, you'll have to be hiring an attorney to help the beneficiaries of the estate, do the paperwork and make sure everything gets done, gets done in a fair and equitable manner. Okay. A lot of times people will ask, well, how can we avoid probate? And the one way to avoid probate is by having a living trust. And a living trust is a little bit more detailed, a little bit more expensive, legal document that's going to spell out your wishes. You have to have trustees. And in most cases, unless you are really have some wealth, have some significant savings or assets, a living trust isn't necessarily needed, and you could get by with just a will. Okay. The steps to opening up a probate proceeding is your executor is going to have to give notice to the creditors. They take an inventory of the assets, and then any expenses from the estate, the executor is going to be responsible to pay out. They're going to have to distribute the assets to the beneficiaries, and they're going to have to keep probate open for 6 months, allowing creditors to file the claims. So it is, a process, and really, the best thing is, if you were organized and had a list of what your assets were, had a list of who you want to get what, that makes the process go a lot easier as you go through probate. I'm not going to really spend a lot of time talking about trusts, but as you try to research and become more familiar with these processes, you'll probably hear a little bit about a living trust, an irrevocable trust, testamentary trust, or special needs trust. These are basically legal documents that in the case of a special needs trust, if you have a child that's autistic or needs has special needs, these types of documents are designed to make sure that once you pass away, that your assets and the care for your child will be addressed in a fair manner, and that their needs will be taken care of. If any of you are trust fund babies, an irrevocable trust is the type of a document that lets your assets stay outside of your estate, so you don't have to pay estate taxes. So there's a lot of different, other ways to do some legal planning, depending on the size of your estate. And most people really, probably do not need a trust. One of the things that's really important when we talk about estate planning is your healthcare or durable medical power of attorney. And this just outlines your wishes and authorizes somebody to act on your behalf if you're unable to make your own healthcare decisions. My dad passed away about a year ago, and I was named as his medical power of attorney. And he had a stroke and lingered and for some time, and I was the one that had to speak to my mom and the doctors and really decide, and make sure that his wishes, the kind of care that he outlined for end of life was being honored. The thing about a healthcare durable medical power of attorney is that they never expire. Whereas when you see that word durable, there's other powers of attorney that are not durable, and those do expire. Okay. Oftentimes, your spouse, your adult children, clergy, or physicians, can be named, as part of this, group of people that can help make these decisions. You can, the Illinois Attorney General does have documents online. And if you go to this website, you will notice that you can download a durable medical power of attorney. And basically, you're going to just fill it in and then have it witnessed or notarized. And then that way, that will be valid. What's really important is that a lot of times people have these documents, but they never bring them to the hospital when they need to, or they just don't tell their doctor about it. So it's really important that you have a conversation, with your doctor, and really, I suggest bringing somebody else along with you from your family, or somebody close, and have this conversation together and let the doctor's office know that you do have this durable medical power of attorney and really what your expectations are. Okay. Another legal document is called a power of attorney. And what I want you to think about is, let's just say, you and your husband own your house, you are getting ready to sell the house, and, all of a sudden you or your husband get sick and nobody is able to sign the contracts, sign the documents. And if you had a power of attorney, they could sign and act in matters relating to your legal or financial issues. And so it has nothing to do with your health, but really more to do with your financial and business affairs. Another example is, I mentioned my dad passed away, is my mom is going to be 86. And unfortunately, she's not as sharp as she used to be. So I'm able to, with her, the documents that she executed, a number of years ago, to really take care of her IRA, take care of her 401k, and make those financial and legal decisions for her, because she's given me that authority to do. And it's really important to have that as part of your overall estate plan. Another document that's really not a true legal document, but really more something that many people like to do for their families, is called an ethical will. And I think a lot of us have seen the TV show where somebody passes away and they open up all the wills and the documents and they gather the family around and they read the ethical will to them. And basically, it's just a way for you to express your feelings, to share your values, your experiences, and life's lessons with your family. You want your grandchildren or your children to really understand what you're about. And, you could will them money and will them property, but, willing them your values and morals and your ethics, is probably one of the most special things, that you can do. So that is called an ethical will. And it's just really, taking out pen and paper and expressing your wishes and sharing it, with your family, is what an ethical will is all about. Part of an estate plan is making sure that your beneficiaries are all up to date. And, as life changes and as you have children and as children get older, younger, and, we have other people pass away in our lives, it's important that your beneficiaries are up to date. So take a look at your life insurance take a look at your IRAs, your 401ks, and make sure that you have the right people named and that everything's up to date. It's very easy to do. It doesn't cost you any money. All you really need to do is, call the insurance company, call the 401k vendor, and ask them, who the beneficiary is, and ask them to send you the paperwork so you can name, make sure things are updated. Oftentimes, some of this can even be done online, so you don't even need to wait for any, forms to be sent to you. One of the things I want to remind you to do, and it's really important as you look at your beneficiaries, is please don't name your minors, if you have minor children, as beneficiaries. What will happen is, if your IRA or your bank all of a sudden, has to, pay out your account and they see a minor named, they will not be able to write a check to a minor. And so it's important that you really have a guardian or, somebody of legal age to act on the minor's behalf. And I could tell you a lot of times what I see, unfortunately, being in the insurance business, is somebody will name a minor and all of a sudden, everybody has to hire an attorney. They have to decide, who's going to inherit the money, what's the best way to spend the money for this individual. And before you know it, the only people that are benefiting are going to be the attorneys. So really take the time, dot your I's, cross your T's right now. Another common mistake is people will, instead of naming an individual, they'll just put down estate, so that when your 401k or IRA is paid out, it's going to just be payable to your estate. I can't see a show of hands, but I would ask you, if we were all in one room, to guess what would happen when your 401k is paid to your estate. Basically, what happens at that point is it's going to have to go through probate if you don't have a will, and then the courts will help decide where that money should be going. So try to avoid naming your estate as beneficiary, and always name a contingent beneficiary. The odds are very slim that something's going to happen to both you and your spouse, but just in case, you always want to name another adult of legal age to be your secondary or your contingent beneficiary. Another term that you'll hear is your paid on death, or POD. In the legal field and the insurance field, there's all kinds of acronyms, so I'm sorry to bore you with acronyms, but those PODs will be applying to your checking, your saving accounts, and there you can talk to the bank and name a beneficiary, and be real specific, just to make sure that your wishes are honored. And once again, let's just make sure things are updated for you. Okay. So, hopefully everybody, will have an understanding of what a simple will is, how it, will serve your family, and, the importance of having an executor to it. And so I just ask, if you care about your loved ones, choose your beneficiaries and your contingent beneficiaries along with your guardians and executors. It's very difficult. I know if you've got, minor kids, a lot of times, people, one spouse will say, well, my sister is better equipped to taking care of them. And, there'll be some discussions, but, do some real soul searching and make sure that you designate, these people in these legal documents. Otherwise, the courts are going to be getting involved, and then they'll be naming these people. I also think it's very important that once you've executed these documents, that you really share everything, with your family or with those people named in the documents. You never want to surprise somebody that, hey, they've got this responsibility. So really, review your plans with your family, Let them ask you questions and let them really know, what your feelings are and what your wishes are. And it's so important, to keep your plans current. And really, lastly, to consult with a professional. I know Alex Pope from the foundation at Rush Copley. He deals with a lot of local attorneys in the area, and he's always happy to give you an introduction to somebody that could help draw up these legal documents for you. But take the time and speak to a professional and make sure the I's get dotted and the T's get crossed. So that is really my 30-minute overview on what estate planning is all about and the different things that you need to address and take care of. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time. I'd like to thank you for really having the fortitude to think about the future and making sure that your house is in order. And I can guarantee you that your family is going to be better off with the kind of planning that everybody is thinking of. Okay, so with that, Michelle, I'm happy to take any questions and see if I could help anybody. Anything.